Hey everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my studio. Today I am making these 6 adorable wood slice ornaments. Never too early to start for Christmas. But this time I'm using rice paper. And this rice paper comes from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. It's actually her brand. And we have lots of um, rice papers that are on the wreath that are all perfect for these wood slices or wood round ornaments. There's birds, there's wildlife. Go and check it out at ninnysnapkins.com. I'll put a link in the description box so you can go and find some. So these are the wood slice rounds. And as you can see, these ones have been gessoed. I've just put a coat of white gesso on them, and I kind of tend to go and do this all in one sitting. So actually, I have done those last year. Now, sometimes you may want to put 2 coats to get it more opaque. This is a personal preference. You can leave it after 1 coat. It shows a little bit more of the wood grain. You could also paint it an off-white, a cream, if that's the way you want to roll. You can even leave the wood round as is, but I find when you put either the rice paper or a napkin on it, that it distorts the color a little bit. So I prefer to give it a coat. And here I'm just using white paint. I'm using my angle brush, going around, giving it a coat, and making sure that this is completely dry before I move to the next step. That's why I like to do it out of session. So this rice paper, I am just cutting it apart so it's easier to manipulate. But the fine cutting I'm going to do by water cutting. And by water cutting, I mean I'm taking my liner brush, putting water on it, getting a good amount of water, and going a small area, letting it soak in. It takes a little bit of time, and then little by little, just peeling it off. This gives a deckled or feathered edge, which more easily dissolves and disappears. So you don't really see the harsh line. You can cut it out with scissors, but then you tend to get that harsh line, and I prefer this way. My suggestion here is go little by little, go slow, and stay in control. I'm getting as close as I can, but there still is a little bit of white. But as you'll see in the final product, it becomes seamless and you can't see. I'm using both hands to make sure that I don't rip it. If you rip off a part, it's really okay because we are going to be overpainting, and you can paint in the missing tip of the leaf if you need to down the road. But the key here is small areas. Let the water soak in. It takes a little bit of time with rice paper. If you've done water cutting with napkins, you need less water and it breaks down a whole lot quicker. Rice paper, it's a little rougher, tougher, but that's why I like using rice paper for it because it's very forgiving. A napkin is harder to get perfectly flat, get without wrinkles, but rice paper, even though it's a little bit more expensive, perhaps, is so much easier to do. So if I was doing this on a card or on these ornaments or my wood rounds or these wood slices, it's definitely worth that little extra expense because of the ease that rice paper will bring to the project. It's just simpler. I will link the videos of where I've done other wood rounds and other ornaments if you want to go and check those out. There's some similarities and some differences. So I'm just working my way around, putting water on my brush. I've got a drop of water on my craft mat you see me dripping into. Now here we've got some of this fiber. Every once in a while that fiber's there. You can't rip it. So I just snipped it a little bit with scissors. And you'll see those fibers if they get in your way. And you'll know when you can water cut and when you need to use the scissors. I'm getting right up to it. The little bit of white that's left is negligible. But I do leave the white in the center of the wreath, and you'll see that that goes completely clear. All you see is the white background that's on the wood round. So when you do ornaments like this, you can do it assembly line. Do all the white gesso painting. Do all the water cutting. Do all the gluing. And then what you'll find is that you're really saving time because it's one cleanup and one process. Now I am trying out, I think I've got 12 of these rounds and I'm matching them to the right size. Now I want to adhere the rice paper to the wood round. I'm making sure where the hole is on my wood round, and that's the top. And I'm using my Liquitex fluid matte medium. I'm using a generous portion of that. You want that to soak in the rice paper to completely adhere this. You want it to last. And then easy peasy, put it down and put a coat of matte medium on top and no wrinkles, no fuss, no muss. When I did napkins, there's a chance that you're going to end up with wrinkles. So I was actually recommending the iron decoupage technique with napkins, but this is way simpler. So well worth the extra cost of the rice paper. And really, I've got 6 focal images for 6 ornaments out of 1 piece of rice paper. So I think the cost is pretty low. And these are beautiful. I'm so happy with how they turned out in the end. Now, if you have Mod Podge, you can use Mod Podge or decoupage here. Whatever adhesive that you typically use will work. Just be generous with it. I wouldn't use gel medium here. It would work, but it's unnecessary. I like the more liquidy one. Now, when you put this down, you'll notice that the colors do get a little bit brighter, but I want them even brighter, and that's going to be the next step once this is completely dry. If parts of it overhang, you can then edit them out or wrap it around, whichever you prefer. These wood rounds, I believe I bought from Amazon, but I've seen them at Dollar Tree. I've seen them at Michael's. Source them out, get the best deal you can. Pay attention to the size. Not all of them are the same size, and you want them to fit your focal images, be they from a napkin, be they from a rice paper. Now we're going to start the overpainting process, and I'm going to use my Inktense block. Inktense block are water soluble like watercolor, but they are ink and they are permanent when dry. So when I put a little coat of varnish on this afterwards, they aren't going to reactivate and smudge. So I have my colors, all my Inktense blocks swatched off, and I want to match it as close as possible to the color that is already there. I'm testing it out on paper and then just basically doing a wash of color. Why am I doing this? Because I want to strengthen the colors. I want the birds and whatever's on the rice paper to be a little bit bolder. Can you leave it without overpainting? Absolutely. It's beautiful the way it is. So if you're not into the overpainting or you're not brave enough to try it, you can definitely skip this overpainting step and move to the next step. But the overpainting does add so much to the final project. And I will show a little bit down the road here the finished product next to the rice paper. And you'll see the difference that it makes, the bolder colors. I'm just testing out the colors and then just going and overpainting a little bit where that color is, matching it as well as I can. If you don't have a color that matches, I mean, I have the 72 kit, but if you don't have a color that matches, you can mix colors. And nobody's going to see the original, so anything you do is going to be right. So I keep just looking at my swatches and then finding that color. Now, if you have Inktense pencils, just get the color off the pencil or scribble it onto your craft mat and activate it with water and then do the wash. I've also done overpainting with acrylic paint. Typically, I tend to water down the acrylic paint, but I like the ease of using the Inktense blocks. My Inktense blocks are 10 years old. They are well loved and well used in my art journaling and mixed media projects. I consider it a real staple in my stash. So here I'm just really tweaking up that red color. And I'm just moving from color to color. Got all 6 here, do what you know you can do and then go from there. Do you have to overpaint everything? No. I could just overpaint the bird or just overpaint the wreath if I wanted to. So I've sped up parts of this video, especially where it's highly repetitive. Here I'm just adding color to the leaves. It looks like eucalyptus, I think. This was a very quick project. I got all 6 of these done in under an hour of video time. So let's add half an hour for parts that I did not show on the video. So here I'm just adding that color, making that green stand out, and this really made a big difference to me. It just brought everything to life. So now I want to paint that grapevine wreath, and I grab my fine liner brush, and I have some burnt umber, I believe, and some unbleached titanium, and I water it down a little bit, and then I'm just painting the grapevine wreath, not necessarily trying to go right over top of what was there. I am going over, but I'm maybe adding to it. I just want it to look like grapevine wreath. And those aren't all exactly the same. So there's, again, a lot of freedom here. This, because I'm using acrylic paint here, it's adding a little bit of dimension, a little bit more to it than the Inktense blocks. So I do the darks and then I add some of the unbleached titanium, shadows and lights. Now we want to do some shading on the birds, on the leaves, and I'm using my angle brush with a little bit of black acrylic paint, and I'm just touching it here and there, just adding a little bit of shading. Again, the goal of this is to make the focal image really pop, come to life. And there I'm just touching back the leaves. This shading technique, once you perfect it, once you get the handle of it, it is so functional and you would use it so much. And in my mind, really makes everything work so much better. I'm just following where the shading is on the original. So there is the original rice paper on the right and the finished one. Now, because they're on the round, they look much bigger, they're bolder, they're brighter, I think. And in real life, they are amazing. They're going to make perfect gifts. You could put that on, um, put some jute on it or some ribbon on it to hang, put it on top of a wine bottle, use it as a gift tag, and then they have the ornament. I'm using my stylus to dot the eyes. That's adding a little bit of dimension as well. And then I am going to splatter with gold paint here, just to finish it off. Make sure once you splatter that you give it enough time to dry. Those splatters do take a long time because they're pretty heavy. Love, love, love what's happened here. So now I am going to edge the wood round, and I'm taking a little bit of burnt umber and a little bit of black. And again, I'm going to use my angle brush and I'm going to shade or edge around the round. This kind of gives a soft, diffused shade around it, makes it look a little bit more rustic. Makes everything work together. Get rid of that bright white. So now I had put some of that rice paper over top of the hole, so I need to punch the hole. I'm using my stylus very carefully. I don't want to rip anything. If it does come loose, just grab a little bit of your fluid matte medium and get it all down. And if it is necessary, it didn't happen to me, but if you do rip it a little bit, you can always go back with a little bit of acrylic paint and color it. I'm just clearing the hole because I will be, once this is varnished, um, put either jute in it, which goes well with the wood slice ornaments, or some gold ribbon or red ribbon. So I'm enhancing the wood round and I'm taking some of the burnt umber and going around on a blending foam and then with a little bit of black. It's just deepening the colors on the outside, just something I like to do, but you go with what your personal taste is. You could leave them as they were. This further enhances the forward one. So we could be done and leave the backs raw. As you can see, half of these were painted and half aren't, and I'm just going to make them double-sided. It's just the way I roll. So I grabbed this stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm using this evergreen tree, and I'm stenciling with Hooker's Green and then a little bit of the burnt umber. Another color you can put some red in there. That looks really well. Burnt sienna with the green or a little bit of blue. Gives some really interesting colors. But the thing is you do not want it to be just one tone. I'm layering up a couple trees. Like I said, I've kept half of these raw wood and half of them on white. Which one do you prefer? I couldn't make up my mind, so I went half and half. The wood round that I kept complete just in its natural state, I did put a coat of fluid matte medium just to seal the wood. You could glue down a napkin and have it one color. You could just stain the wood round. if you wanted to and just have it like the raw wood color. Lots of ways to finish it. So I'm just finishing the edges here, just like I did to the front. And now I'm just going to stamp some Christmas themed words on there using my wood blocks. I'm using the Ranger blending foam, getting some black paint on it and using it like a stamp pad. And then I have my wooden blocks. I grab a baby wipe because just in case I make a mistake, and then also to clean my wood stamps. Now you could print stamp somebody's name on here if you were giving it to a specific person. It's up to you, but a small set of wood stamps comes in really, really handy. So I'm just stamping it in there, and I'm not trying to make it perfectly straight, which I find is always the better plan. You could have also stamped in the date or just drawn in the date, or you freehanded the sentiment if that's the way you roll. And again, we're kind of doing an assembly line with all the stamping. Could have stamped it with red or burnt sienna if that's the way I wanted to do it. Again, there's lots of variations that you could do. What I want you to do is take the basic steps, the basic idea, and then run with it and tweak it however it works best for you. Here I'm making some mistakes, so I'm using a baby wipe and wiping it up and then restamping. So I've grabbed my stylus and some red paint, and I'm just adding some Christmas balls to the tree. Red, white, and green. Perfect Christmas. You could also have taken a little motif, a focal image from a napkin, and glued that down here as well. So many options. Splatter with gold. I do have close-ups of each of the birds. Now I use the stylus to make red berries on the or lights on the tree, and then I decided I'm going to do the same to the front, but I didn't catch that on the video, so I thought I'd just point out that I just added a few berries to each of the birds or the wreath. Just add that little pop of red. So you don't have to leave the focal image as is. You can tweak it however you want. Then I'm going to give each side 2 coats of polyacrylic varnish. I like the satin one. And here are the 6 beautiful birds. Again, a comparison with just the raw rice paper to see the difference. And now each and every one, a close-up of each bird. You can see the bright colors. How lovely. I hope you give this a try. Like I said, use the steps and let your imagination and your creativity go wild. Until next, go get creative.